You are here. Congratulations. You have survived the complete saga of human existence, from primordial soup to the present day. But don't get too comfy just yet. There are hundreds of thousands of years worth of pivotal moments, inventions, and migrations you've somehow managed to survive. And now that we've got your attention, it is time for a whistle-stop tour of the entirety of human history, starting from 6 million years ago. Welcome to Life Noggin. So how do you condense millions of years of history into a quick video? Well, by focusing on the big stuff, obviously. Like first things first, let's kick off our timeline with the emergence of the hominins, the group that includes all species of the genus Homo and our closest extinct relatives. According to the fossil evidence, the hominin lineage split off from the great ape lineage around 6 million years ago in Africa. We know this because the oldest hominin fossils we've found so far come from Ethiopia, and they date back about 6 million years. For quite some time, scientists debated whether or not our earliest ancestors walked upright. And if so, was it kind of like us, or more like a crab claw where they used their hands and feet at the same time? Because we're weird that way. But in 2015, scientists determined that the oldest known member of the hominin family tree did walk upright based on its pelvic bones. This is also when we first started using tools. But there is some debate as to who was actually using them. See, the thing is, our earliest ancestors weren't necessarily making their own tools. They were more likely taking sharp rocks and pieces of wood and making them sharper. Enter the man who probably invented the wheel. That was a lie. He didn't invent the wheel. It actually thought that these kinds of rudimentary stone tools, called Oldowan tools, were made by either Kenyanthropus, Platypus, or Australopithecus, afarensis, an extinct species of hominin that lived between 400,000 and 300,000 years ago. These are the famous Lucy fossils. Lucy was an afarensis, but there has been some recent debate on whether or not she was using these Oldowan tools, so scientists may need to rewrite textbooks. Stay tuned for updates. Okay, so for a long time, people thought that after Lucy, there was a gap in the hominin fossil record, basically meaning we didn't find anything else until we got to Homo erectus. But more recently, we've discovered a number of different species from this time period, including the famous salam. But none of these hominins seem to use tools consistently. And even though they had fairly large brains, they still mostly relied on their incredible, opposable thumbs to forage for food, much like we do today with our thumbs. Then around 2.6 million years ago, we got Homo habilis, which means handy man, and he certainly lived up to his name because he was the first undisputed toolmaker, using stones and bones to cut, hack, and jab. But while he was technically the first person to make a spear, we don't really think of him as the ultimate hunter. Instead, he was likely a scavenger, using those handy tools to get at the good stuff. And Homo habilis remained the dominant hominin for over 1 million years. But then around 1.8 million years ago, his cousin, Homo erectus, entered the chat. Now, Homo erectus is pretty important to our story, because he was the first hominin to leave Africa and spread across the globe. Though depending on how you define global, because some scientists argue that Homo erectus never left Africa, but instead evolved into Homo ergaster in Africa, which would remain purely African. But we'll leave that one up to the experts. Because today, we're just excited that Homo erectus left Africa at some point. But only after inventing the fire about 1.5 million years ago. Oh yeah, that's right. Homo erectus was the first hominin to harness fire, either by accident or on purpose, and that meant a lot of things. For one, they could now cook meat, which made it easier to digest and likely boosted their brain power. Plus, the extra calories helped them become the first hominin to go from knuckle walking to walking upright on 2 feet. And fire meant warmth, which allowed Homo erectus to wear less clothing and therefore sweat more. Sweating is something unique to humans. By the way, other apes can pant, but they can't sweat. It's like a superpower, and this superpower is why we can run long distances without getting super ripped. Homo erectus was also the first hominin to use the spear, creating wooden spears with sharp stone points for hunting, and his newfound ability to hunt meant that he could now eat meat whenever he wanted. Meat, sweet dreams. And this is why Homo erectus had larger brains than any of the other hominins before him. But our favorite thing about Homo erectus is that he traveled the world. As soon as he finished inventing fire, he took it with him on a trip out of Africa and into Asia and Europe. But unfortunately, around 117,000 years ago, Homo erectus went extinct. Whoops. But luckily, there was a new Homo in town, Homo sapiens. Now we don't know much about the early days of Homo sapiens. But we do know that about 300,000 years ago we had left Africa and started exploring the rest of the world. We also created cave paintings, wrote the first stories, and developed complex language. This is also when the Neanderthals emerged in Europe and Asia. They were stocky and strong and built for the cold climate, but they were also smart and creative. They buried their dead, hunted large animals, and created cave art. But they also picked up bad habits from their cousin, Homo sapiens, like smoking, drinking, and wearing pants. We have the receipts. And speaking of Homo sapiens, it's widely accepted that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interbred, which is how most of us ended up with Neanderthal DNA in our genome. But it looks like Homo sapiens didn't just wipe out the Neanderthals, we wiped out everyone. Welcome to the late Pleistocene epoch. During this time, we developed bows and arrows, harpoons and new hunting techniques that allowed us to catch fish and hunt large mammals. We also learned how to make boats, which led to exploration and colonization. At this time, we moved into small settlements along river valleys and eventually into larger cities, allowing us to form larger social networks and governments. Basically, everything changed when the Big Bad Volcano erupted. We don't know exactly when the Younger Dryas impact event happened, because no one was keeping track of time in BC and AD yet, but we're thinking about 12,900 years ago. During this time, massive amounts of ice melted, sea levels rose, and many large animals went extinct. But humans adapted. We domesticated plants and animals and created the first primitive farms. This began the Neolithic Revolution and marked the end of the Stone Age. At this time, we started building villages and towns and living a more sedentary lifestyle, which led to the formation of the first civilizations. The first civilization is generally considered to be Sumer in Mesopotamia, which dates back to about 4500 BC. Here is where writing was invented. The first cities were built, and the first organized religion began. So basically, this is the beginning of recorded history. After this, we started doing stuff like inventing the wheel, founding the first Olympic Games, conquering multiple continents, and inventing the first computer. Just kidding. That last one didn't happen until the 1970s, but everything else did happen during the next 3,000 years, give or take. And then around 3,300 years ago, we invented the concept of zero, which is kind of a big deal. Then around 500 years ago, we invented Gutenberg's printing press, which sparked the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. And then, just like that, we're here. In hindsight, maybe condensing 6 million years of history into a quick video wasn't the best idea. There's so much more to cover, like the rise and fall of great empires, the invention of delicious foods, and the creation of terrible fashion choices. Oh, the fashion choices. But unfortunately, we'll have to save that for another video. Unless you want us to keep going, comment down below. As always, it's me. This has been Life Noggin. Don't forget to keep on thinking.